Hello there. This session we are dealing with depression. On the subject of depression, we're going to look both at the practical considerations and the spiritual implications. Dealing with depression is much more involved than simply dealing with negative thinking. However, the same emphasis on thinking process will go a long way toward lifting the heaviness of depression. I am not a medical practitioner, so I'm not trying to give you any medical advice. However, I've observed numbers of people, including myself, who have suffered from depression and yet have found victory in their lives through their faith in God and through observing some very practical principles. Since our subconscious mind has been programmed from birth through to the present day, we all wear different coloured sunglasses, as it were. We're all convinced that the way we see life is how it really is. And yet, we all see it differently. To look at two extremes, we could say that a person brought up in a very positive, encouraging family where every family member was loved and appreciated would probably grow up with a very positive outlook on life. To a person like this, life will still be challenging, as it is to all of us, but every fresh challenge is looked upon as a creative opportunity with many interesting options to pursue. On the other hand, someone who grew up in a dysfunctional family or an orphanage will probably have suffered abuse in many different ways: verbal, mental, emotional, physical, or even sexual abuse. And to that person, life may seem like an overwhelming challenge with no escape. In the extreme, that kind of person may feel that all they can do is just suffer and endure this life until death brings an escape. This person may be unable to see that life can change for them, or that they have any real hope of happiness. Of course, the possible extremes that we've just looked at are only broad generalizations and, of course, not necessarily true. When we're born again into God's family, we receive a whole new life, and with it comes hope for the future. That is our position in Christ. However, we then need to set about learning how to live the Christian life to the full so that we can take advantage of its benefits. The Bible clearly tells us in Ephesians chapter 4 in verse 23, "Be renewed in the spirit of your mind." Colossians 3 verses 8 to 10 tells us this: "But now is the time to get rid of anger, rage, malicious behavior, slander, and dirty language. Don't lie to each other, for you've stripped off your old evil nature and all its wicked deeds. In its place, you have clothed yourself with a brand new nature that is continually being renewed as you learn more and more about Christ, who created this new nature within you." It just made me think of our skin, which is, they say, the largest organ of the body. And the skin is continually being renewed. It is sloughing off the old dead cells and creating new ones, so that our skin is always newish and being renewed continually. Very interesting. And so our lives are like that. We're sloughing off the old dead attitudes and beliefs and ways of behaving, and we're putting on a whole new life, a new nature, and a new way of living. A lot of Christians have the idea that because we're new creatures in Christ, it means that suddenly we are totally changed and therefore everything should be rosy. It's true that we are totally changed in our spirit, which was dead to God and now is alive. However, this verse and many others show us that growing in this new life is a lengthy process and not an instant fix-it-all. Some people have to work on cutting out persistent sins. Some people need to work on changing destructive thinking patterns. Some need healing of the emotional areas of their life, and some even need deliverance from demonic spirits. The good news is that you are no longer trapped like a victim in your circumstances. Now you are free in Christ to develop a whole new you and a whole new lifestyle and basis for living. No longer can others dominate or intimidate you. They may still try to do this, but you will call on the Lord for help and strength and the right words to say to them. As your faith in God grows, so will your ability to stand up for what is right. Now you have the power to choose for yourself how you will live. Not only that, but you have the Spirit of God living in you to give you wisdom and guidance, peace of mind and heart, and more love than you could have ever imagined. This course will help you to change the way you interpret and look at things when you feel upset, so that you can feel better and act more productively. Research has shown that when you are depressed or anxious, you're thinking in an illogical, negative manner, which causes you to act in a self-defeating way. With a little effort, you can train yourself to straighten out the twists in your thinking. Actually, I read a book many years ago that was called Straight and Crooked Thinking. Very interesting. As your painful symptoms are eliminated, you will become productive and happy again, and you'll respect yourself. Others will respect you more, too. These things can usually be accomplished in a relatively brief period of time if you really set your mind to it and really act on the things that I'm teaching here. You don't have to be seriously depressed to benefit from this approach. We all need a bit of a mental tune-up from time to time, and you'll find out how to pinpoint why you feel down and what to do about it. If you'll invest a little time in yourself, you can learn to master your moods. And I'm not in any way trying to minimize the devastating effects of depression. It's a medical condition which should always be assessed medically in case there are clinical aspects which need medical treatment to follow up. At times when you're feeling lighter, when your mood is lighter, try reading through these notes and try out the suggestions. Pray before you begin, and you may be surprised at what God will do. So this action steps for this week are talking about changing your mood and your thoughts. And I believe that if you really work on these things, you're going to get a real breakthrough. So our last video in the series is on the need for close relationships. And people often struggle with relationships. Maybe they have one or two good relationships, but find it hard to get on with people generally. Or maybe you just struggle with people in general, and it's not very often not your fault as such, but because of the way you were brought up and the attitudes and thoughts that were instilled into you and the perceptions of life, and maybe you've been betrayed or there's been broken trust, and those things really damage our ability to have good relationships with people. And so that's what we're talking about in our next video, and I'll see you there.